we'll move up to mods, then that's probably an idea too. That way, because we are meant to be teaching people like a university, so
Right.
Yeah, no, I've got
Introduction
some.
to mods.
what's that,
I've
mate?
got pods here, to kind of help with that step up.
Yeah,
I just don't have any second lights. I threw mine away a long time ago.
yeah, that's all right. We'll just explain like how they got the cartomizers, and that's how they all sort of started, and then they moved into like what are they called? The
Like the pen
the
vapes.
clarim, yeah, the pen vapes, just with the little claromizers on them and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean I've got one right here. I mean, granted it's not for vaping, but it'll work as a display piece at least.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Just
All right.
some kind of show people if we've got it.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
I've got two different regulated mods, a squonk, and then I went out and recently just bought a little pod system. It was like 99 cents. So I was like, "Hey, why not?"
Okay.
And then I've got my old pen vape. So
Okay. All right. Alrighty then. So, yeah, welcome everybody. How many people? There's a few people watching at the moment.
yeah, I think it says we got two right now. So
Yeah.
alrighty.
Alrighty. So, I guess we'll start off then, yeah, with the mods, where it all started, where vape started in. It all began just with your typical cigar lights that look like cigarettes. I guess it was just a thing so people could try to quit smoking originally. So they tried to make it as similar as they could to a cigarette, and they had a tiny little cartomizer on them, which was just virtually cotton soaked in juice with a little bit of a tiny little coil in it, and they were just typical throwaways. And then as time progressed, they started to bring out things like the vape pens, like you have, Matt.
Yeah, I've got. Oh shit. Yeah, just a little pin style,
Yeah, yeah.
but
And that was made up of a battery, obviously a coil, and a little bit of cotton inside a nylon. Is it nylon? The tank? Is that what they were made out of?
uh,
Like some sort of plastic?
all the ones I've seen have been like acrylic, so
Yeah,
like
acrylic. All right,
like plexiglass. Um,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, because they went from like the old style of just drooped wicks in there to actual coils recently. Well, I say
yeah,
recently, within the last 5 or 6 years.
yeah. When I was younger, I did have one, and I remember it having just a little like a wick going into it as well.
Yeah,
So it was sort of just like an oil lantern. Yeah, yeah. And then the term mod came around when guys started, they wanted to get more clouds and like vape production and flavor in general, so they started to pull apart torches, they started to modify torches,
hmm,
and then that's where the term mods came around, and that's why everybody refers to like hybrid mechs and like your typical mechanical mods as mods in general, like the old fashioned sense, because that's what they were using.
right.
It all sort of it moved into that factory built style, like a torch almost. And then as time progressed a bit more, they started to bring out your typical box mods that were unregulated, and then they started to bring out like regulated mods. So it's, I guess that's where it started back in, what was it, like early 2000s, a little bit before,
Yeah, because
and it slowly progressed.
I believe in like 2005 was when I got my first unregulated box mod, and that was when they first
Yeah.
started coming around. Those were dangerous.
Oh yeah, I can imagine they would have been. Yeah. So I've only been vaping now for about, like, properly starting to really pay attention to it all, probably the past 4 or 5 years. But before then, I was using like the Clarimise and stuff, sort of just as like a test it out, see what it was like, sort of thing. But I was still smoking at the time, so I
Oh,
wasn't sticking with it all. Yeah, like not actually studying it properly. Where I started studying more of it about 5 years ago onwards. Yeah.
yeah, I'm about the
Uh,
same setup because I
yeah.
started with the clear misers, and they just weren't doing nothing for me. So I went back to smoking, and about 4 or 5 years ago, I actually got back into it as
Yeah.
heavy as I am now, and it's changed a lot since the beginning.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it's really turned into a bit of a science now, learning all this stuff. Like with the Claramizers when they first came out, when I was using the Claramizer, it was about 10 years ago. There was nothing to it. It was as simple as going down to your local smoke shop or like anywhere that sold smokes, and they were selling them at the time, and there was no particular sort of study behind it. It was as simple as putting in the juice, charging the battery, and off you went.
Right.
There was no modifications to it, so there was nothing you really had to learn. It was simple and easy. These days, when it comes to vaping, there is a bit of a science behind it when it comes to like building and all the different mods, the settings you'll be using. So many different variables these days, so there's a lot more to know. So that's probably why a lot of people these days freak out about vaping, because there's so much behind it. So yeah.
Well, and there's so many different ways of doing it, and
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just
Yeah.
it's overwhelming for a lot of people, and they don't take the time to actually get to know what's going on with it.
Exactly. That's why there's so many questions asked these days. Yeah.
Yeah, and people give up quick too. You know, they're like, they run out and they buy the first cheap pod or Sega-like, if they still market them. You know, something extremely small, and they're like, oh, well, this should work. It's cheap enough. I can try it and see if I like it. 9 times out of 10, those really cheap devices like that, you're not going to like. You're not going to enjoy. And you're going to go, just give me my cigarette and call it good.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
You need to, you know, go ahead and say, okay, here's my carton of cigarette money, and get something worthwhile, you know.
Right. Well, and people don't realize, like, that's how I've gotten like, I got my dad and my mom both into vaping just due to, because he was about a carton a week smoker, and
Yeah.
it's like, if you just take that one carton and go get you this, it'll save you money in the long run, for one, and it'll taste a lot better. You won't smell like smoke. I mean, it's a win all the way around. But yeah, he's actually got a bigger vape collection than I do now.
I don't
Oh gosh.
you know, but you know, I can either just show you the box or I can take it out of the box. But here's one of your pods. It's the Infinex. This one you can actually refill, but it's light enough that it's similar to a cigarette. You know, draw and all.
Right. Well, like I've got one that they just sell at a little gas station one, just an Enjoy, and it's one of the disposable pod systems, and
Okay.
from using it, it's a lot more like a cigarette than any other vape, just because the amount of nicotine, the draw style, the hit style, it's all very similar to a cigarette, but these can be off-putting to some people just due to the fact that, from what I've noticed, it's a lot harsher than a cigarette. And
Super high nicotine.
exactly, it's got such a high nicotine that it's a very strong throat hit. And I've noticed.
I don't really.
Go ahead.
I've never really noticed that it's much stronger. Probably, I like the throat hit, so I don't know. I guess that never really bothered me.
Right, and it also all depends on, you know, what kind of style you smoke too, because I'm mostly a direct lung guy, so the throat to lung it kills me at some points.
the what they call the mouth alone, kind of like when you were smoking. But I do it on the bigger devices. You know, everybody says, oh, well, you know, you got to use a pod or an MPL style device to do mouth alone. No, I use a big Steam Crave Atomizer Plus. You know.
Yeah, you can do mouth to lung with anything you want. It's one of those things.
Still do mouth alone, you know, big mouth alone, but mouth alone.
Yeah, as long as you restrict the airflow, it can be possible. Can be made done. Yeah, you can easily do it.
Well, it depends upon the size of a hit you take too. you don't have to sit there and keep sucking in for 10 minutes or 10 seconds. You know, you can take 3 seconds and then mouth long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's like the little Aspire AIO I have. It is designed for a mouth to lung, but you can have a restrictive lung hit with it.
Yeah.
Like direct lung. It can be done, but it's almost like drawing on a really tightly rolled cigarette. It can be a little bit annoying. It almost feels like you're going to pop when you do it, but it can be done.
I've done that. I've tried mouth to lung on the cig or the direct lung on the Cigalikes and on that. It just you're doing so much drawing. It's a weird feeling.
It is, yeah. It's almost like sucking on your thumb. You're not getting anywhere.
Right.
It's for smaller pod type devices like the Segalite in the beginning, and then the different pods. You know, some you can fill, some you can't. Some I call AIO style pods, which is this one, the PAL 2. The reason why I call it AIO style, all in one, is there's a coil that can be removed from the pod.
Much similar to the Spire that I have.
Coil where you have to throw away the whole entire pod. And that's what Vape On was talking about with his Aspire. It's a true all-in-one. It's not pod style. It's got a built-in tank into where the battery's at. I think that's the one you're talking about, right? The first.
You can remove the tank, and the coil is a similar thing. It's the Nautilus coil, the Aspire Nautilus coil, and they screw into the airflow adjustment, and that airflow adjustment is the cap for the base of the tank. So you do have a little plug along the side that to fill it up, but that's like it helps because then you can just go out and just buy a typical Nautilus coils, and then you can throw them away, and you don't have to dispose of the entire system. So because you've got your closed systems and you've got your open systems, and that's similar to yours. It's an open system where you can replace the coil and not have to throw away the entire unit.
Yeah. A lot of the pod system are the closed style, just for ease of use. But those pods are expensive.
The newer AI style pods where you can actually change the coil, to me, if you're going to use a pod, are your best bet, money-wise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Some people are just trying to find the convenience of it, so I think that's why they made the closed units. So then there's more convenience behind it, because people that did smoke that are trying to quit and they want to try a pod system for the first time, it might be a little bit daunting to have an open system, having to change coils and change airflow settings and do all the bits and pieces that we're used to because we've vaped for a while. Whereas they've only just started, so they want to have that convenience like it is with a cigarette, where they can just pop it in their mouth and light it up.
Right.
And that's why they make like drawer-activated devices these days too. So then it gives that more of a real feel, a real simulation to what it was like smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, but I've also noticed that the pods are getting bigger and bigger. You know, so
they are, aren't they? Yeah.
And becoming more oddly shaped. So it's making you not feel as close to holding that cigarette. Like an Infinix it's not shaped like a cigarette, but it's light enough and close enough in shape to kind of make you feel like you're still using a cigarette.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed with like the pod systems, they've started moving away from the cigarette lookalikes and more into the actual people that already vape kind of get an idea of what this is. It seems like they're trying to move away from just a cigarette replacement to its own complete thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people are looking for the functionality behind it too. Like with those Cigalikes and your little tiny little cartomizers that were around, the pen style ones, for people that were heavy smokers that chain smoked, they probably wouldn't be suited to them because they'd be going through a lot of the cartomizers and a lot of juice and a lot of battery every day.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas these days with the pod system, usually when they've got about 1,000 mAh, like the little fella I've got, I can't remember how much the Aspire has at the moment, but it's along those lines, and it can last all day, and then you can plug it in at night time and then not have that issue. So that's probably why they're also starting to move up in size, so they can have a bigger storage of battery.
Yeah, I mean this is a all-in-one style, uh, kind of mod, kind of pod, kind of thing, uh, and it's all in one because the tank is built on, and it will you. There's nothing else you can put on it other than that tank. If you break it, you're lost. But it takes to replace the coil. It's direct battery. There's no adjustments, no nothing. Full battery, you get, I don't know, 10, 12 watts, something like that. Back in the day, you didn't know what your wattage was. It's just whatever. That's pretty much what this. You really don't know unless you bother to do the research. You just slap in your coil and call it good. Simple charge. Don't have to change a battery. Don't have to do nothing. And another, small one like y'all are talking is this style that has a, sub-ohm tank, but it's a mouth-to-lung style sub-ohm or pod sub-ohm.
I'll be back in a second. Let's go grab some of my stuff so I can show people as well.
Oh, you're good, man.
Okay. Let's see, what else do I have small? These have great flavor. They're expensive and you don't want them. You cannot fill them or anything else.
I've seen those before, and everybody says they have an amazing flavor, but they're not worth it.
No, the pods themselves are ridiculously priced. You can't get any. They'll sell you the device, and I think they'll sell you like 4 pods at one time.
Yep.
And when you go to buy new pods, they tell you, we don't have any. You have to buy the device again, and then you can buy up to 4 more pods. It's like, why? My device is still good.
Well, that's like the vape shop we have up here. They've actually got a restriction on jewel pods, and you can only buy 2 pods per day per person. And and I'm assuming that's to try and cut down on, buying them for kids or whatever. But
yeah.
It's one of those things, and the pods are ridiculous. Like, the pods for that little iDroid I've got, they're $11 for a pack of 2 pods. It's...
Yeah, but they're pre-filled, right?
Yeah, they're pre-filled. They're all-in-ones. But yeah, it's $11 for 2 pods, so you get... I don't know. I'm also comparing it to, buying a bottle of juice at $15 and it lasting me almost a month.
Well, yeah, but you got to consider, if you were to buy empty pods for most of your devices out there, most of your pod devices, the empty pods themselves will run you, say for 2 of them, roughly $10. And then you add in the amount of juice you're going to use to fill those 2 pods, so it works out to be about the same price.
Right. Well, the main difference is with a closed system. They're a lot more costly, I guess, because they are so much simpler, and it's just one of those ease of access things. With the refillables, with the refillables, they're a little bit cheaper because you do have to put a little more work in on your end.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the little Nautilus that I have. This little guy, and it has like the removable tank similar to yours. And so you got your fill port there, and you've got your airflow controllers there, and like it just runs on the little Nautilus coils that everyone, I'm assuming, was probably seen in the past.
Yeah.
It's simple. Like, they've been around for so many years, so they're not going to go anywhere anytime soon. That's why I got this little guy, because it's convenient. Like I said, I think I said it in the first episode, it's one of those little things I can just keep this in my pocket and use it when I'm doing stuff, and I don't have to walk around looking for my vape. It's always there.
Right.
Convenient little guy.
And that's one thing I've noticed with vape, like, because I've started doing this too. If you have a pod system, it's really nice if you're just running somewhere real quick, or you're actually doing something and you don't want the weight of an actual mod on you.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly right.
Their place, and they are convenient. They're definitely not an all day for me, but they are convenient from time to time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that use them all day long as their only device, but I wouldn't suggest it. You know, my personal preference. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things. They do the job, but it's how efficient do you want the job done, and how much work do you want to put into it.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. So the thing, then you got your starter kits after you got your pod systems. As people, I guess, progress, then they start to move on to things like this, like the prints. This has got the TFV8 on V12, and they're simple. All there really is to this is you charge it, you turn it on. There's no adjusting the settings, and it's just really coil replacement and charging. So that's another. Like that's the next step.
Oh, let's.
Sorry. They just start to move up in like your vaping. So what else what do we have in after you have these sort of systems? You'd move on.
I think into nope, not that one.
You start moving into your replaceable battery kits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I've got I've got the wrong tank on it, but I've got the tank over there. But just like a regular smock is one of the main ones that people go to for their starter replacement battery kits. With these, you get a little more control as your wattage, your coil differences, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they're fairly similar to like the battery installed mods. The only difference really is the batteries themselves. Being able to actually pull them out, recharge them.
This is one of the first smock replaceable battery style. It has your safety features, but it has no settings whatsoever. It's like your smaller, older style battery built in, but this one, you would unscrew it, drop you in a battery, you know, and just hit the button and go. Like they're saying, you know, but these are your first steps up before you get to the bigger ones.
Right. Till you actually get into changing settings. But like I've noticed with actual like regulated and changeable mods, there's all kinds of them. Like the one my Legend, it doesn't have nearly as many settings as that does, but those settings it does have, it does slightly better from what I've noticed.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah. Like because I'm starting to use the top side a lot now, the Squonk, and they've made that really simple and easy for people to use. So it'll sort of help to focus on another side of things where, yeah, like I said earlier, how people get a little bit overwhelmed with settings. So they can move on to more advanced devices, but using a simple settings menu.
See, like one of the ones I've noticed that has a very simple settings menu, but it does really well is the Legend, for one, is one I've noticed. Is the main one I've noticed.
It is pretty simple, yeah.
It's got, I mean, it does have your different metal settings and all that, but I mean, it doesn't have all the background changing and all that other extra, like, just aesthetic crap that some of them have.
A lot of them are doing that, Dave.
That's what that one is. That one has LEDs, all the whole nine. Is just, it's got a lot of different settings.
Something else too. Even if you get a fancy mod that can do everything under the sun, including fix you breakfast, you do not have to use all that stuff.
Right.
You know, you have the option of using it as a basic, hit the button and I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone from functionality to like the cosmetic side of things now. People are like using it almost as like a means of being cool with all these different color settings and stuff like that.
It's just like they've done with computers. I mean, the more LEDs you got, the cooler you are, apparently.
Exactly. And same with mobile phones. They bring a new one out all the time because they're trying to do bigger and better than the previous person.
Right. Well, and like you were saying, I mean, you don't have to have all that.
No,
It's just one of those that's kind of cool type things.
Yeah.
But along
Would
with,
the
go ahead.
would the setting style be your next step up, or would you say the variable voltage style would be your next step up?
I'd say variable voltage would probably be on the upper
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, variable voltage and variable wattage, and then we moved on to like temperature control, but it never really. People still use temperature control, but there's only a small amount of people that really use that.
Yeah, and from what I've noticed, the temperature control is a lot more of the people that are into building their own coils
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they get a little more control.
Voltage style. Uh, this is just LED lights. It only indicates how much battery life you have,
Hmm.
but just have this one knob to set your voltage from like 1 volt all the way to 5 volts. Uh, and very simple, nothing else to adjust. You just adjust it and try it until you find the right heat for you, and leave it alone from there. That's it when it comes to variable voltage.
Yeah,
right.
once you get into the settings, I mean that's when you start going into your mech mod, or not your mech mods, but your squonks and stuff like that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah,
Me and Vape On both have squonks to show you when we get to that point.
Yeah, I actually
Oh,
got
yeah.
one this past week.
Did you get topside as well?
Yeah, well, I got the G box.
Oh, okay. Yep, yep. Do you like it?
It's all right so far. I like the mod. I'm trying to figure out what coils I like though. That's the big thing on my end. Is finding
Yeah,
a
that
coil
does take a little while.
because I haven't done rebuildables in quite a while. I've been sub ohm since I got back into it, for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. So what would we move on to then? Because we were at box mods talking about regulated devices. So what's the next thing really from regulated devices? Yeah, is you're moving up into your squonks that are regulated as well. You can get unregulated squonk mods. So that's what do you have like? What are they? Is it the Vandy Vape?
Oh yeah.
What
I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, they make an unregulated squonk mod.
I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
the squonk here in this box. Come on, where you at? I know you're in here. Nope, that's variable voltage. Where'd you go? Where did you go?
But really, the only difference with the squonk mods and just a regular regulated mod is it's mainly for the atomizer setup.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like
Yeah, yeah.
this is a unregulated squonk. You notice there is no uh, chip or anything there. This RDA came with it, but a squonk is just, it's got a bottle that you squeeze and it shoots juice up into your atomizer.
Yeah,
This one
yeah.
is regulated, so it would go directly off the battery, no safety. It is basically a mech mod, but they call it an unregulated. You just push the button and it fires. As long as you got battery power, you've got
Yeah,
fire.
and like I was saying earlier, the old school just unregulated box mods have become more of the mech mod now, because
Exactly. That's
they're
right,
just
yeah.
direct battery, no safety, no chip, no nothing. I haven't messed with those since way back when it first started, so I have no idea. I'm assuming you guys have a little more knowledge on like semi mechs and mech mods.
Yeah, I've got
Uh,
some different mechs here as well to show off, different types of mechs and what have you.
Yeah, so I'm more focused on your regulated devices than I have your unregulated devices. I've always thought just for the convenience of them made it a lot easier for me because I quit smoking. It was about about half a year ago now, and I've found it so much easier just using a regulated device. That way, I don't have there's not much having to worry about, and it just makes it a lot simpler. Now I'm really starting to get into RDAs and the convenience of a squonk. Yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah.
I was previously using. I bought one. It's a while back now. I got it's a little Vandy vape. It's just called the Simple EX. Tiny little squonk. It just has what is it? It's a little 4 mil, I think it is. Yeah, 4 mil squonk bottle in it. It's a tiny little squonk bottle. Absolutely tiny. And the coils that are in this, they are absolutely tiny. Like I was using the 32 gauge in my previous build on this, and did 8 wraps. Like it's unreal. It's yeah, it's absolutely tiny. It is unreal. Cool little thing to have if you're just trying to like sneak it in. It's a bit of a little sneaky vape if you're trying to get into somewhere and you're not allowed to smoke, and you can easily use that. That was the first form of skunk I got into.
Just so that y'all know that are watching, when he said 32 gauge, the way the wire, we'll get into it later, but the way the wire size is like a needle. If it's 100 gauge, it's super, super small. If it's 1 gauge, it's super big. So.
Yeah.
It's sort of opposite to what you'd think it would be.
Yeah, the higher the number, the smaller the size.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But we'll talk about that in another episode. I was just sort of, give you guys an idea what it was.
Right, that'll be more in the coil design and stuff like that.
Because I know somebody's going to ask, well, what does that gauge mean?
Yeah. Alrighty. So, that's really... What else is there? Then you've got, like, your typical, your hybrid mods that, JC, you show us some of what you have there.
Let's see. We have... Okay. We'll start off with a telescoping, and this one is your normal mech mod. It does have a 510 connection there, so it's not a hybrid.
Not a hybrid, okay.
It's telescoping, which you push the bottom button and it fires off. But the reason for a telescoping style, which I got to remember how to make this telescope, is so that you can put different sized batteries in here.
Okay.
From here, you can start at like a 13350 or 18350, or I think it's 18350. Then you can move it up to a 18650, move it up to a, well, not this one, but some of them you'd put in a 21700. This one will only go to an 18650. But you can do a little 18350, a real small battery for a small last you couple hour type use. And then you have your other normal, again, regular 510 connection mech mod. It just takes 18650 battery because it was one of the newer ones from the 18350s. They were the first ones because they used a little tiny battery, and then we moved up to a bigger battery. We also have all different styles of that. There's one I've got made out of wood. It's actually made out of bamboo, and it's more considered an unregulated than an actual mech per se, by terminology anyway. It's still a mech, but if you talk to anybody, they'll tell you, oh, that's an unregulated because it has wires. But there's still no safety, no nothing. Just slap in a battery, slap on an atomizer, and hit a button. And then we move into your hybrid mech mods, which have no 510 whatsoever. It's your atomizer touches the battery directly. That's just the hole to hold the atomizer. There is nothing there to touch the battery itself. Then you move up into stacks, which are one of these or one with a 510 on it that has 2 or more batteries stacked on top of each other. Just stacking them up high, which makes it, depending upon your build, hotter, battery lasts longer, hit harder, and then let me see. The last style I have here is, where'd it go? It's a dual bed up. The Noisy Cricket. Again, it's a hybrid style because it does not have a 510, but it is, I think they call it a series mod. It takes 2 batteries, one up, one down.
Yeah, so they're wired in series instead of in parallel.
Yeah.
If you're not careful, this will hurt you quicker than, a stack will as well, but quicker than just a regular single battery will.
Yeah, in series, once you get into mech mods, your parallels will be your stacked, and then your in series will be like your side by sides. And the main reason the side by sides are more likely to hurt you is because you can put the batteries in backwards, and it just wreaks havoc.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, when you start getting into mods that take different size batteries, like you've got one that isn't a regulate anymore. They say, oh, it'll take an 18650. It'll also take a 21700. They'll give you something like this. It's a little sleeve that you put the battery in and has a connector down there at the bottom that makes it so that the battery is fatter and a little taller. That's why a smaller battery will work in a device for a bigger battery and still be safe. Or as safe as any mod is, of any sort.
Right.
Yeah.
Alright, let's see what we got here.
So, should we... What else? There's not really much, is there, now, when it comes to devices?
No.
I think we're going to move on to atomizers now.
Different atomizers, yeah.
Yeah, we can go with that. And like he was saying, you've got your basic all-in-ones with your closed system and your open system, which is mainly going to be your pods and then like your pins or your Sigalikes. And then you've got your RDAs, your RDTAs, and then you have your regular sub-ohm tanks.
That's right, yeah. And a lot of things, like when it comes down to what people, because a lot of people go, oh, what's the name for this? What's the name for that? They all come under Atomizer, because they all sort of, it's an umbrella term for anything that's really being atomized. So you really, like when you start off, like you've got a lot of people will say, oh, this is like, for instance, like just the TF V12 that I have. These are actually clarified as a Claramizer because it has a clear window, and it's like they've crossed the term clear and atomizer together, calling it a Claramizer, which is weird because you still think, no, it's a sub-ohm tank. A lot of people will refer to it as a sub-ohm tank, but just about anything sub-ohm, as long as it's under 0.1 or under an ohm, that's classified as a sub-ohm.
Right.
So there's a lot of terminology these days that sort of gets misread. People don't understand correctly.
Yeah, because... Go ahead, JC.
Yeah, go ahead. All right, well, it's like your pods. Okay, when they came out, they started out as being 1 ohm or higher, which made them mouths long, made them very much so a pod. And then they started making the coils below 1 ohm, so technically they became sub-ohm pods.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. Well, that's similar to this, like the Kanga tech that I use. That can be used as a mouth lung or a direct lung because it had coils that were point 0.1. I think no, what was it? Sorry, 1.5 ohm. That was your mouth lung coil, and then you had I can't remember what it was. I think it was point 0.5 of an ohm. That so then they made it direct lung as well. So it was sort of when they were starting to change over, when people were starting to get into sub ohming. They weren't sure whether to stick with your typical mouth lung or move on. So it sort of helped people that step up to get into sub ohming.
Right. Well, and what most people consider sub-ohm now is going to be your pre-built coils that are pre-wicked for tanks specifically.
Yeah, the sub ohm tanks. Yeah.
Considering almost everything at this point is sub-ohm, that's going to be, when you ask for a sub-ohm coil or a sub-ohm tank, that's more what they're going to be pushed towards.
Yeah, this is one of
exactly.
sub-ohm tank. Because it does take your replaceable sub-ohm coils, right? Simple, pre-built, already wrapped in cotton. That's your sub-ohm. No matter what brand, what shape it takes, what have you, if it fits in something like that, that is your sub-ohm.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, you'll have like you at the base, obviously. Like I'll pull this apart quickly, like the V12. With the V12, obviously you've got your base cap, where this is bottom airflow. So obviously you're gonna have the airflow at the bottom of your tank, and then you'll have your coil will screw into your base, and then you'll have your glass, obviously, and then you'll have the top cap. And a lot of the time these days they'll have top fill when it comes to your simple basic designs.
Yeah, I haven't seen many of the bottom or the actual pull apart fills for basic designs in quite a while, actually.
Yeah, well, so I got like the old Crown 3 and like the Falcon. The Falcon's a pull up like that's.
Oh yeah, that's a screw top, isn't it?
Yeah, and same with like the old Crowns, they were a screw top. I always really like I've liked these for a long time, the Crown 3s. This is where I sort of started getting into sub-ohming when I started using the box mod, using the regulated mods. And I found this to be extremely good, considering they were just press fit coils. They weren't threaded coils. You didn't have any issues there with trying to match the thread. Some of the time, like with the prints, I've had coils in the past that felt like the threads just didn't match.
Yeah.
And I've had leaking issues in the past with them where I never did with the Crown because it was a press fit. It was a simple and easy design.
Yeah, with the screw-ons, one thing I've noticed, especially with Smock, and this is nothing against them, but I've noticed that with theirs, it's pretty easy to cross-thread, and which leads to leaking.
I know, I've heard of a lot of issues, especially over the Zepple box thread. You always hear people saying, oh, I'm having issues with my V8 and my V12 and it's leaking, I don't know what it is. A lot of the time I've noticed with smoke coils, yeah, if you prime the coil, we'll get to that soon, about priming and stuff like that. But when you prime the coil, you shouldn't prime the inner cotton. You should always just prime the outside of the cotton
I've heard that
on one of the smoke coils. Yeah, it's a common issue. Like when I first started using smoke products, I'm so used to priming the inside of the coil, and I did that, and it was leaking like a sieve. I could not work it out for the life of me. And then it wasn't until I think it was my third coil that I went through that I discovered that's what the issue was, dripping on the inside of it, and it created that what do you call it? I'm having a bit of a brain fart at the moment. The capillary action. It opened up that capillary action so much that the juice was just flowing straight through. Really strange. I couldn't work out exactly why it was doing that, but that was the issue.
One thing I've noticed with that is if you've only got the cotton or the juice coming in from one side, you won't have that issue. But once you have it perforating from both sides into the cotton, that's when it starts because it opens up on both sides instead of the one side before the burn.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So you had your we're talking about those sort of tanks. Then so that's your typical sub-ohm tank, and then as you move up, you start to get into things like RDAs and RDTAs and stuff like that. I know, JC, you've got some RDTAs, and I've got an example here. I've got my Geek Vape Zeus Dual, and that's sort of your next step up when it comes to tanks. They're not bad. These do involve building coils or installing pre-made coils.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see, yeah. And they are a little bit fiddly when it comes to doing this, but for convenience, once you set it up correctly, they are so good. They are really, really good.
Yeah, speaking of RDAs and RDTAs, there's also a subclass that is kind of in between the two. It's a RDTA. You have a tank down here, but up here it is identical to a RDA, where your coils sit up there, you wick through it, but then you have to lay your coils all the way down inside the tank to absorb the liquid and pull upward.
Yeah, those are a lot like the old style pen vapes where they had the cotton wicks.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And one thing
RTAs,
go ahead.
You're right, mate. You go ahead, mate.
One thing I've noticed that a lot of people or a lot of companies, I know Smock's doing this on their bigger tanks, but they'll actually give you an RTA coil base because my Cloud Beast King came with a RTA base.
Okay, yeah. They brought that out a while back, but it's weird because this is so old, that Kangatech. They did bring one out as well for this too, a rebuildable for it, and you'd need a microscope, no joke.
Yeah.
It was that small.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The hex keys the hex heads are so small on that. It's so hard to fiddle with.
Yeah. It's sort of people might think it's cheap in the long run, but convenience, it's just it doesn't have that convenience that
right.
things do.
It's all what your time costs to you.
Exactly, yeah. Because if you have all the time in the world to do it, go ahead.
Yeah, because with sub-ohm tank, with like your regular just pre-built coil, wick, everything in one, those are extremely easy to do, extremely convenient, but they do have their limitations.
Exactly,
then once you get into your RDTAs, your RTAs, your RDAs, that's when you're getting into more complicated, more time-consuming, but you can also have a wider range of whatever the hell you want with it.
That's right, yeah.
Because a lot of your sub-ohms, they'll say on the coil itself, we recommend 50 watts to 80 watts.
Yeah.
With rebuildables, it all depends upon different factors. What type of coil are you using? What ohms is it? What battery are you using? And Ohm's law, and back to our first show, Ohm's law, battery safety, all that. And then you can move up the scale to, as low as you want or as high as you want. You're not limited like the sub-ohms.
Well, and they also, the quality of cotton too, it also is a big factor in that I've noticed at least. Yeah. Because I've got some of the regular coil or the vape bacon, and then I've got some of the vape bacon prime, and it's night and day difference between just the same brand, just a little different style.
Yeah, and there's no way I could even start to list off all the different types of wicking material out there.
Oh yeah.
Pretty much, if it holds liquid and doesn't catch on fire, you're good. Yeah.
Right. And then it's all just to taste and to spec that whatever you want. And that's the thing with the RDAs and the RTAs. They're more customizable in that sense.
Exactly, yeah. You can try all different styles of cotton. The best cotton I think I've found for when it comes to Geek Vape is using their own cotton, the feather cotton. It's really good stuff, really, really good, because it has the little the shoelace ends on it. The
I've been looking for some of that, and
style.
I can't find that anywhere.
Oh, okay. I'll have to send you some.
Those are really convenient. You know, there's a lot of different name brands of that, but they're convenient, real convenient.
It is extremely convenient, and the thing is with this as well, like it's like it even says on the front of the packet, it says organic and convenient. But it's already like pre-fluffed up for you, so you don't have to try and frizz it out on the ends. You can thin it out a little bit if you like. It depends on what you're using, I guess. Like when I use the Zeus, I do have to give it a little bit of a fluff out at the end just to sort of be able to get into the end of the juice ports inside that tank. But when I'm using it in my RDA, like in my drop, I'll just simply slide it in, snip, tuck her in, Bob's your uncle. Don't have to worry about it. It's already done for you, really. It's done. Convenience.
Yeah. And I mean, once you get into RTA or RDAs, you've got, you know, your mesh, you've got your 2-post, you've got your 3-post. I think I've seen all the way up to like a 10-post.
Yeah, I've seen some stupid builds.
That's in Colorado. That's as big as the state of Colorado.
Right. Right. It's twice the size of the mod, but apparently you can get some damn good cloud production.
Yeah.
I remember, I can't remember, I think it might have been Jay Hayes. He did a review on a bloody RDA, and no joke, yeah, it was about that big.
Yeah.
It was massive. I couldn't get over it. Sorry, what was that?
That's the Colorado.
That is the color.
Yeah, one of the guys at the vape shop that I was in Oklahoma, he had one, and he said he was running, I think it was 6 coils, and it was ohming out at, I think it was like 0.02 ohms, and it was just, I was like, man, you're gonna either blow yourself up or something's gonna happen, or I don't push that far into it yet, at least.
But, something like that, you know, if you're gonna use something that, you know, like I've got some RDTA or RTAs that take 3 coils, or they're made for 3 coils. You can put less or more, but if you have something that takes a lot of coils, don't, you know, try to build it down to 0.001. You know, try to, you know, add all your coils together and build it up to a decent range, 0.5, 0.4, 0.3, somewhere around there, you know.
Just because with that amount of coils,
you know, 0.1 millionth of an ohm doesn't mean you need to. Yeah.
Just because it's possible doesn't mean it's a good idea.
That's it, eh? Crazy. Some of the stuff that people do these days to try and make clouds, eh?
Oh yeah, I've seen some. I've watched a couple of the cloud competitions, and Jesus Christ, they have some weird setups going on.
Oh, it's unreal, hey? Absolutely unreal.
But yeah,
alrighty.
Your RDAs and what have you. You have your single coils. You have vertical and horizontal. You know, like this one's the Reverie. It takes a vertical coil, a coil that goes up and down instead of side to side.
Right.
You know, and it's a single coil, or it's designed for a single coil. Then you have ones that are designed for 2 coils, ones that are designed for 3 coils, and up from there. Most of your RDAs and RTAs are going to take your vertical side to side. Is that horizontal?
Horizontal.
Horizontal. And the primary difference between them, you know, anymore anyway, is airflow. I can't even get this one apart without putting it on a mod. But like Matt was saying, you know, you've got your basic 2-posts. Then you have ones that are a flat rod with another flat rod underneath it that you stick your coil in. Those can also be used with mesh because they are solid flat pieces.
Yeah.
Most of them have holes in the side where you slip a leg through each hole. That's with 2 posts, 3 posts, 4 posts. Uh, a lot of them are like a football field goal post where you put one coil through one side, another coil through the other side. Uh, it's doubtful you'll find any of the old style where you have to wrap the wire around a solid post, but they are out there. Um, but yeah, for the most part, they're really simple. Once you learn your Ohm's law, battery safety, all that, they're really simple to build on. Most of them nowadays, of your newer ones, anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've gotten to where they've got decent-sized build decks to where it's not such a small work area that you're trying to fiddle in.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what I actually like. Even though that's a small build area, it's postless on the Geek Vape Zeus Dual.
Oh, so that's not too
postless,
bad.
So it's simple to slip straight into the holes. You don't have to try and put them sideways or anything like that. So it helps for the build really, really well.
Now,
and that's another thing.
I was
just going to say, with the
negative against the postless like that is you have to measure your legs before you put them in.
Yeah. You can buy gauges these days for cutting your coils.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy like a little gauge these days that will have you drop your coil into it and you can trim it off. It'll help for people that are sort of getting into building and stuff.
Yeah.
That's coily. A lot of your newer devices come with a very small version of it, and they normally saying cut your legs at this size, use these holes, or that's what we suggest anyway. So
yeah. That's really it when it comes to like RDAs and RDTAs and RTAs. There's a lot when it comes to building. We'll get into that further on, but that is they're examples of atomizers under that umbrella term atomizers. And you've got like similar things like when I use with the drop, it doesn't have. You can trim the legs of the coils once you drop it in. You only have to give them a slight bend at first before you have to install them, and then you can just trim them from the inside.
Yeah.
There's some these days that have those, like you were saying, the football post style post mounts. You have to trim them before you put them in a lot of the time, unless the coil itself comes in sideways to the post. There is all different styles.
And I mean, even like mine, I've got the radar that came with the G box, and it's a slant style. They actually feed in from each side towards the bottom, and it's actually it's been fairly easy to build on. But one thing I have noticed with a style like that is you can clip one side after you put it in, but you'll have to clip the second side prior to putting it in because you won't be able to reach them.
That's like the Vaping Fagan's new atomizer that he brought out just recently. He showed a demonstration when he was doing that, and he slid one in, clipped it, and then had to remove it before he went ahead and did the other one.
Right.
Because they're on the 45 as well, going into it. Yeah.
Well, I know one of his, the BTFC, they come out through the sides, but you can slip both coils in and cut the legs from the outside of the atomizer itself with the BTFC.
Right. Well, and that all depends on the amount of posts you have, because if you have a 3-post, which means you've got 2 positives and 1 negative in the center, and both coils sit on that same post, it makes it a lot more difficult to try and do that.
Yeah. Alright.
Anything else you guys can think of?
I think that's really, we went through a fair bit of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been about an hour.
Yeah, not far off. Alright, yeah, I reckon we've gone through all the mods and stuff that we can think of. Fair few atomizers. given everyone a good idea when it comes down to that. In our next episode, what were we going to be focusing on?
Let's see here.
Priming
is our main thing.
Sorry, what was that, mate?
Priming, and then wicking and priming, and then
that's right. Yep.
Yeah, that was our main thing.
Well, the coil initiation, wick and prime.
Yeah, and then we can do like priming our non-rebuildable coils, and then show people how to do that, and then we'll move on to other things like pre-made coil installation and wicking and stuff as well. So as we get along, we'll be able to progress and get further up, show people more advanced stuff.
And any of you in replay, if there's something you're confused on or something we didn't cover that you want to be covered, drop us a message down below, and we will look at it and incorporate it into one of the soon-to-be shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody's got any questions, or if you notice something we didn't cover, yeah, just let us know. We'll work on, and this is a fairly new thing anyways. So if there's something you guys noticed or want to see, let us know down in the comments, and we'll see what we can do about it.
Yeah, and if you think we're wrong on something we say, let us know. We have no problem. If we're truly wrong, we have no problem admitting to it.
Right.
The teachers can do. And also, on another note, if you're really, really, really stuck and confused, I don't know about Vape On and Matt, but you can always contact me, and I will do my best to do a one-on-one, more in-depth, whatever you need.
Yeah, I'm happy to do a similar thing as well. I do have an email for all this sort of stuff, and it is Vape On with Jeffro. Jeffro spelled GEOFFRO @gmail.com. So if anyone wants to send an email to me, that'd be good, and I'll be able to help out too. I have no issues whatsoever doing that.
Awesome. Sounds good, guys. You guys got anything else off the top of your head before we close this out?
No, I think that's sorry, what was that, JC? Didn't catch that, mate.
Channels, subscribe to us, follow us,
Yeah, and it's...
That's it. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button for us, and subscribe to the channel if you're first person watching it. It's always good to know what's happening in the next video.
Yep, and we do these, at least in America, it's going to be 7 p.m. Central. And for Aussie time, what would that be?
Yeah, it's now 10. It'll be 10 a.m. It's we've just had daylight saving tick over, so it was 11 previously. Now it's we've got it at 10 a.m. on a Friday.
Awesome, sounds good. All right, well,
beautiful.
Yep, we'll be back next week, and I guess that's it for us. Have a good one, guys.
You too, guys. See you later.